Hello YouTube. This video is going to be for the YouTube group that I'm on called Ex-Christians for Olympus. Now the reason why I'm doing this video is basically to let you guys know why I love Christianity. Now I've always considered myself a witch from birth. I've always been interested in the paranormal, the occult, witchcraft, ceremonial magic, ever since I was little. It's always been something that I've been interested in. But when I was a young adult, um, in junior high school and high school, like most parents, they try to do quote unquote the right thing. And basically, they tried to convert me to Christianity. And basically, I went through the motions. I went to church and I was bored out of my skull. And because I didn't know better, I considered myself a Christian or a mystical Christian, I guess. Because I was, I never denounced any other things that I was, truly interested in. So I went to church, went to the motions, and eventually I got baptized. And that's something that I wish never would have happened. But, being a young adult at the time, it was like, whatever, whatever pleases my parents at the time, I just go ahead and, give lip service to it. At that time, I guess you could say I considered myself sort of a Christian or a mystical Christian or whatever you want to call. Um, my mother at the time, said I was new, excuse me, new age or whatever. But as I said, even though I called myself a Christian at the time, and I guess on some level I was, I never really bought into the whole philosophy behind it. So I was baptized, and as far as I'm concerned, I went in a dry devil and came out a wet devil. But I was baptized into the Christian faith. Now, when I got older, and as I started doing more research in the occult and whatnot, um, I just basically left the church because number one, it was boring. I had better things to do on Sunday mornings rather than listen to some preacher get up in the pulpit for an hour. And I think it was about an hour or hour and a half. We had to listen to, some guy talk, and it just bored the hell out of me. And the thing that got me is, number one, the sermons were boring. And halfway through the sermon, they would pass the plate around, and you had to give money. It was like, at the time, I had to give part of my allowance to this guy, and I'm, bored out of my mind. It just didn't make any sense to me. But, you know, at the time I was, young, and I was like, hey, whatever, I just, wanted to please my parents or whatever. So at that time, I guess, I sort of like tried to fit in or whatever. But as I got older, I definitely, first chance I got, I left the church because it did not make any sense to me, and to me it was just one big waste of time. And one of the reasons why I left the church was because there was always this restriction on sex, which I never understood. From my understanding of the Christian religion, you had to wait till you were married before you can have sex. And I just thought that was the oddest thing. It's like, it didn't make any sense. And the thing that always got me is my Christian friends, none of those guys were virgins. Everyone was having, sex. And it just didn't make any sense because no one was really, truly followed that. I guess maybe some people followed it, but none of my friends did. None of my friends in high school that were Christian, even members of the church that I belonged to, they oftentimes, broke that rule. So it's like, well, why even have a rule like this? And no one really followed it. So that was one of the reasons why I left. And then there was always this condemnation against homosexuality. A lot of my friends who were gay at the time, they always got this backlash from the church because of their sexual preference, and that's something that just it bugged me in particular. Not because I'm gay. It bugged me because I tend to be androgynous. So a lot of times people would think that I'm gay, which I'm not. I'm not gay. I'm androgynous. That means basically I like to dress a certain way. I don't dress in drag or anything like that, but I wear my hair long, and I just tend to be, I guess, androgynous. The way someone like a David Bowie or a Prince or a lot of my rock stars, people who I really liked, were androgynous. So I tend to be androgynous, and when you're that way, especially in a neighborhood that I grew up in, a lot of times people would think you're gay, which in my case I wasn't. But that was something that the church that I belonged to didn't understand. They would always tell me, I should cut my hair, or I should dress a certain way, or it's just something along those lines, and it just basically it left a bad taste in my mouth, and that was another reason why I left the church. Is just didn't make any sense why they would be so nosy into someone's sexuality. Why would they even care? Why would that have some type of bearing on my spirituality? What sex I chose to sleep with. So it just didn't make any sense. So that's another reason why I left. Um, and I remember listening to a show here in Michigan, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in some of my other videos. There was a show called Psychically Speaking, and basically the guy who ran the show was Christian, but um, he would bring on these psychics to his show, and he would, his radio show would be on Sunday nights, and it would last for about 2 or 3 hours. So I would listen to this, and I really learned a lot from the guy, even though the guy was Christian. And of course, my church at the time, they were totally against anything like this, astrology, tarot cards, anything along those lines. My church was like, totally against this. So I've always, like I said before, I've always been interested in that type of thing. So when I learned that they weren't, tolerant of this, that was just another reason for me leaving the church. And when I left, I never looked back, and it's not something that I would even want to consider going back, because it's just not me. So anyway, that's the reason. That's the reasons why I left the church. At least the reasons I can think of right off the bat. Um, it's not a good fit. Some people follow a spiritual path that leads them to Christianity and the cross, and that religion, and some people are more earth based. So that's me. I just do not fit in with that religion. I never fit in. If I ever have kids, I would never force them to go to a church. I wouldn't even, I wouldn't force my religion on them. I would just let them make up their mind. And that's, I think, what most people really should do. Let the child make up their mind what religion they want to follow. Don't try to force something down their throats. Anyway, that's at least part of the reasons why I left Christianity, and as I said before, I've never looked back since. Okay, so until next time, love is the law, and peace.